this as a belief, maybe?
Can I share it in a story?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So I was born and raised in a Christian household, and I was indoctrinated and taught that a heaven and a hell existed as two separate entities, and with the belief that if you name this God, Jesus Christ, and you accept him into your heart and you ask for forgiveness, that is the key, you can say, to get into the door to heaven. Otherwise, on the flip side of that, those who don't do that, we are all sinners, and the sinners that don't repent go to hell. And so for me growing up, it was a very fear-based practice, and just as I've grown my awareness and gone through my journey of self-discovery and what spirituality and what God means to me, the way that I know God is not that. Is not that egotistical presence that needs to be named in order to go someplace that is blissful after this life. And so, I don't know if you want to tap in with me. I feel like,
no, you're good. I mean, your experience, you probably have way more to say about your experience.
But, I'm curious why so many people still have that thought, that belief. To me is
So would you say at this point that you've abandoned a belief in heaven and hell?
Yeah.
So you no longer think of those as places that exist?
Yeah.
And does that mean also that you don't believe in any sort of afterlife?
No, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So maybe we can talk about your your concept of the afterlife now as a belief. Does that sound interesting? I'm Samuel, by the way.
Samuel?
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. So, and I hate to, I kind of want to, it's focus on a belief.
Yeah.
Rather than just sort of meander around, which
Okay.
is, obviously entertaining in many ways, but it's not really specific to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about maybe your transition from moving away from the sort of classical Christian conception of an afterlife into wherever it is you are now, and why it is you're where you are now, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe let's define your belief now, if you could.
Mm-hmm.
Put it into words somehow.
So my belief is that there is, that the life that we experience here, I don't think that this is the end of our existence. I think that we have an undying soul. I believe in reincarnation, that we can reincarnate, and whether that's a choice to come back to this planet or not, I'm not really sure. And I guess the more that I start to question and look for answers, the more non-answers I find, and just coming to accept that. So to me, it honestly doesn't really matter if there's an afterlife or not, but I do believe that there is, but it doesn't really matter to me.
So if you were try to put it on a scale, if 0 being no belief and 100 being absolute certainty, where would you say you are in terms of how certain you are that there is an afterlife?
it's a weird simultaneous like knowing but unknowing, like complete knowing but complete unknowing. I don't know how to describe it.
Okay. So you're simultaneously at 100 and 0?
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that can make sense. Do you think that having started off in life with this idea of an afterlife,
Yeah.
even though it turned out to be one that you rejected,
Yeah.
do you think that was influential in sort of getting the ball rolling
Yeah,
in terms of
absolutely.
thinking that there is some sort of afterlife?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's like what is the purpose of religion? Well, we're scared of the unknown. So I think that tapping into like what that upbringing did give me, this like foundation of like principles and practicing prayer and like kind of developing that aspect of yourself that needs to be nurtured. And but it was the like identity of God that I didn't resonate with, and that wasn't making sense to me.
Something specific about the identity, like you
fear.
mentioned the fear factor.
Yeah, the fear factor, and the projected ego that to me, like I said, the God that I know in my heart doesn't need to be named.
When you say the projected ego, I'm not exactly clear what you mean by that. Is that like the projected ego of God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And how does that fit into the concept of the afterlife?
That the premise of Christianity is built upon that you accept Jesus into your heart, and you almost like it's like a announcement, like a public announcement that Jesus is the one that you pray to and is your savior, and that's what unlocks you into heaven.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying that it's it's sort of an arrogance of like having to acknowledge the Christian God in order to have the afterlife. Is that what you mean by the?
Right.
Okay. Do you feel like an afterlife, the idea that there is something beyond this material life,
Mm-hmm.
is contingent, is a projection of the human ego?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, do you think that there are, like, is there an afterlife for trees and ants and birds?
Yeah, I think that it's like I believe that every piece of, there's matter and there's energy, and I believe in the energy of all beings, all things.
Okay.
And it's, when you look at an ecosystem, it's all part of the collective, and so that's where I don't see separation.
So are you using energy as a synonym for life almost, or afterlife? Like it sounds like maybe the idea that our energy doesn't die is what you're calling an afterlife. Maybe, I mean, that's just what I'm hearing, and I'm sort of asking for clarity, I guess. Is that what you mean?
Created or destroyed.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Therefore,
Yeah.
But so that would be distinct from like the sort of Christian conception of an afterlife, where you have a soul and it's still like you're still you, just in more of in a less material form. Is that the sort of afterlife you're conceptualizing?
Sorry, your question was the energy, or?
Yeah, is this more like an afterlife of an energy that continues, or a like this soul in the sort of Christian conception, or even like Muslim conception, where it's like you retain aspects of yourself through like the death of your body, as opposed to like, you know, the idea that something about the energy of yourself continues, but you might not still have your consciousness in that form, whatever that form of energy is. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like pure energy versus like consciousness and experience kind of riddled in.
Yeah. So I guess my question is like, when you think about the afterlife and like reincarnation, like, are you thinking like you come back, like we can come back as a, you know, a hippopotamus with our soul intact?
Yeah, I think that it's.
It's always the super powerful because I have to.
This is like challenging my. I can see it as both.
Okay.
Exactly, that's the
both.
thing, right?
So that's
I don't really have answers. Like, I don't have any answers. I'm just.
fair enough.
I feel like I'm much more of the position that you're taking. Like, I have curiosity that I'm not really I'm not sure.
Okay. So this is perhaps why you said you're at 0 and 100 simultaneously?
Yeah. I'm a learner.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's healthy to maintain that sort of I don't know possibility, right?
So I don't know that answer, but what I do know, at least, in my heart, like, I know that there's not a heaven and a hell, and that's what I'm curious in, is like why people think that. Because I know that not to be the case. I don't know what's on the other end. Like, I can't say it's this.
How do you know that that's not the case?
That just, like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Is that a good way of knowing something that you can't, like, so? I mean, I can think of lots of things that I can't really explain that maybe still are.
Yeah.
So is that like not being able to make sense of it? Is that a good way of being sure that something isn't true?
I think intuition and there's some phenomenon that you can explain. So I think that personal truths and realities beyond the explanation, I think that can be
a good way of knowing.
Yeah.
Intuition.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a particular moment in time when, like, do you remember a specific moment when you were like, when you decided to reject the idea of heaven and hell? Or was it maybe more of a gradual process?
Yeah, I think it was a gradual process. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Like, I guess, would you want, if like, what kind of evidence could you be confronted with that would convince you that you were perhaps mistaken?
These are great questions. That I've been mistaken.
Yeah. I mean, because you said you were indoctrinated into a belief, and maybe some. Gradually, you acquired, an intuition or feeling or evidence that made you reject that idea. But you're embracing an idea about a supernatural sort of claim, And so I'm wondering if you can maybe, if there's anything you can imagine then releasing you from that belief, similar to the way you were released from the belief in heaven and hell.
I think that's why I got into this conversation.
Fair enough. Okay. And like, if your belief wasn't true, would you want to know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes and no. Like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Why do you think it doesn't matter? I mean, do you think like believing you have an afterlife, there's an afterlife, that would seem to me would affect the way you live, perhaps?
Really, it doesn't. For
no.
me.
Okay.
No.
Because it's like if you only have a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You might behave differently than if you feel like you have an infinite amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. I can understand that.
Which may also in turn influence whether or not you want to hold that belief or not, right? Like maybe you feel like you live better without that sort of constraint.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know. All right, well, we're right around 15 minutes, so...
yeah, you illuminated a lot for me to
awesome.
think about.
Cool.
And that's,
So does that mean you enjoyed the conversation?
I absolutely did.